Laird Hamilton is best known as a big wave surfer and a pioneer in the world of action water sports. Over the last decade, Laird has transcended from surfing to become an international fitness icon and nutrition expert. He is co-founder and chief innovator of our sponsor for today's show, Laird's Superfood, and he has also partnered with his wife, former professional volleyball player Gabby Reese, to create extreme performance training. XPT is a unique and powerful fitness training and lifestyle program featuring unique water workouts, performance breathing, recovery methods, and high intensity and endurance training for people of all fitness levels and backgrounds. Laird is the author of several books, including Force of Nature and Life Rider. He was also a contributing editor for Men's Journal, has appeared in a number of feature films and surfing documentaries, and has appeared on numerous television shows, including Oprah's Masterclass, Charlie Rose, 60 Minutes, Chelsea Handler, and Conan O'Brien. He continually pushes the limits and expands possibilities in every area of life, and it's truly an honor to have him on the show. Aloha, Laird, and thanks for joining us on Life Excellence.
Well, I appreciate it. After that introduction, I think it's done. I can leave now.
Well, it's great to have you. I could have gone on and on, but there are so many other things that I want to talk about. Laird, you've pushed physical, mental, and even environmental boundaries with bold, death-defying feats for basically your entire life. I've watched numerous videos of you surfing in preparation for the show, and I have to tell you, my heart raced every time, and my palms were sweating. Actually, they're sweating a little bit just talking about it. I can't even imagine what it's like to surf some of the waves that you've tackled. Now, some who see what you do would call you a thrill seeker or an adrenaline junkie. Some would call you a pioneer or a maverick or a trailblazer, and some would say you're absolutely crazy for the number of times in the ways in which you've risked your life surfing. Now, some would simply call you Waterman for the relationship you've had with the oceans, that immense, ever-moving force of nature that covers more than 70% of the planet's surface and holds more mystery, depth, and power than any place on Earth, as you well know. How do you describe your lifetime of surfing big waves and the deep connection that you've developed with the ocean?
I mean, you know, it would transcend into the spiritual at some point, but you know, my relationship with the ocean started at a very young age, and I don't really ever know a time that I was ever not connected to the ocean. And I think that for me personally, it's been you know, my greatest university, my greatest school, my you know, it's where I've had my scariest moments, you know, my most joyous moments, other than on land with my family, you know. But the ocean itself has just been a teacher for me and continues to be a teacher. I mean, it's, you know, if you think about nature and you think about creation, the ocean is the largest piece of that, right? And it's the most alive piece. I mean, they say water has memory, and you know, I know personally, just with my experiences in the water, how it has a cognitive ability. It has there's almost an awareness that happens that, you know, but all this comes from time. You know, I think that the amount of time that I've spent in the water and looking at the water, and with all that, you still don't know it. It's still a mystery. I think that's part of the intrigue. You know, no two waves are the same. No two rides are the same. It's always kind of a new experience. I think that's what keeps me continuing to pursue certain accomplishments or just certain experiences in the ocean.
Yeah, the thing that really strikes me is how vast the ocean is, and most people don't have an appreciation for that. I'm a diver, and so our family dives, and so we've experienced the ocean very differently than you have. But the thing that always, it's awe-inspiring, but I don't know how else to put it, going underneath the surface of the water. And what I tell people is there's a whole world that God created beneath the surface of the water that most people don't get to see. And so with your having grown up near the water, having surfed your entire life, you certainly have an appreciation for that.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, when you think about first of all, the creatures that live in the ocean, all the different animals and species. I mean, just all the plants and, all of these different jellyfish. I mean, it's beyond almost your capacity, your comprehension. It just goes beyond your understanding. And I think for me personally, it's the place that I've felt the smallest. I mean, I felt pretty small on some giant mountains, but nothing like being in the ocean. You feel small, but yet you feel like you're part of something. You just feel, I don't know. I think with with that long-standing relationship since I was a child, I feel like I have to be near it. I have to be near it. I have to see it. I can only go so long without being near it. And I feel like I get too far inland. I feel like my gills are drying up, like I'm like, okay, I need to at least see it and be near it. And, but yeah, it's an ongoing, my wife, Gabby, says it's the only woman she'll share me with. So, she's like, well, Laird's going to see his girlfriend, and somebody looks at her like, what do you mean? And he's like, the ocean, the waves, so.
Well, I have some sense of how much Gabby means to you, and also how much the ocean means to you. So that's a pretty fierce competition for both Abby and the ocean.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you can't, of course you can never compare your love for your partner and your family, but the, in as just an individual, as just a person, the ocean itself I'm just connected to it in a way sometimes that I think that I don't fully understand. I don't think I can comprehend really the full depth of the connection that I have. As we learn how it just affects it affects your chemistry of your body. There's too many benefits, and we're too connected to it. The oxygen that we breathe comes out of the ocean. There's so many beautiful things about the water. But again, I feel like for me, pursuing riding giant waves, and we're just riding waves in general. There's something magic about the act of riding energy that's traveling through water, and the ocean provides that opportunity. It provides an opportunity to experience this somewhat unique thing that I don't know if there's anything quite like it that we get to do here on the earth. And, I always talk about life is an opportunity to experience being, that we have an opportunity to experience things when we're living. And I think to not take advantage of that, I think is a critical mistake that we can make. And I know there's danger and there's certain things that, but I always say living is a dangerous game. Just being alive is dangerous. You can walk outside and, so can get hit by a car, struck by lightning, whatever. There's just there's a million ways to die. I always say dying's easy, living's hard. But we are required to try to experience things. I think the ocean has taught me that. So many experiences that I've had in the ocean have actually led me to pursue other experiences as well on land. And I don't know if I could ever express enough of what the ocean has meant to me in my life, and the lessons that I've learned, and the experiences that I've had.
Well, and hopefully through the show, you'll be able to share some of those lessons. We'll certainly look for that. Laird, you're regarded by those in the surfing community as the all-time best of the best at big wave surfing. But you didn't earn that title by winning a bunch of contests, right? I looked and tried to, where's the list of all the contests that Laird's won? And I'm sure there have been some. But how did you become so well known, not just in the surfing community, but more universally the more you surfed?
Well, I mean, I think as a child growing up, my father we call free surfing. Surfing is a unique sport, in that, or it's a lifestyle, but it's, you can make a profession out of surfing without being in competition. And because there is an aspect that's more like art and music, that it can be self-expression. And I grew up watching at a stage when surfing in general had two directions. There were people that what we call free surfed, and then there were people that were surfing in competitions, and and that was really divided almost in half. Maybe it was almost more people free surfing, because before competition surfing started, everybody was just free surfing, and then they created a format for competition. But growing up and watching this kind of system, I realized that, for me personally, that I thought that if I could ride the biggest waves in the world, and this is my thinking as a young child, obviously kind of the arrogance of youth, I would describe it, is that, I thought if I was the best at riding the biggest waves, then I would be the best. Like, I would be considered the best so that was really my pursuit. Other than I was drawn to riding big waves, my stature is something that I actually benefit from being in bigger surf, because of the horsepower that the waves have, and the kind of, that size can be a benefit, where in some aspects of surfing, size is not. It can be more almost gymnastic like. And so I look at myself as more like a downhill skier, and I thought, listen, I'm gonna, I liked riding giant waves. If I can ride the biggest waves in the world, and and when I say the best, I mean the best I can ride them, and if it's comparable to other people, I always felt like that it's a little bit like an artist or a musician. The audience determines whether they like your music or they like your art, and so instead of a group of experts, and so I think that was that was kind of my pursuit as a young child, that I was drawn to that. I watched competition. I watched my father surf in competitions. It was as a child, it was confusing. I think that brought out the worst in me, as far as putting me in a competitive thing against another man, because I always thought it was man against man versus man in nature, so I went for the man in nature approach. So that was kind of the basis, but a lot of my kind of notoriety has come through innovation stuff. We created a technique to ride the biggest waves in the world, and that since has developed into creating places like the famous wave in Portugal, where they're riding giant waves, and other big waves in the world where the waves are too large to be caught manually. So we developed that technique, and then I was involved in stand-up paddling, and then foil. I windsurf professionally, and then we started foil surfing. So we kind of were at the forefront of that innovation. And we were involved in kiting in the very beginning, kite surfing. And so I've been involved in kind of some innovations of disciplines within these water sports that have also brought a lot of notoriety that way as well. And then I've done some other kind of endurance stuff that has also brought. So I mean, I've been at this for a long time, and I think Gabby and I speak about. Because we weren't in structured systems, we weren't in a professional league where you were going to be on TV and you were going to be in a certain amount of exposure, that we had to be creative and kind of create our own exposure, like through doing feats. And for me personally, I never went about trying to do a feat to get exposure. I was just doing what I considered feats for my own personal drive, my own personal kind of desire. And then it was just a matter of, then there was, exposure from that ended up, being beneficial to earn a living. So, a lot of it came out of, I mean, I tell my children, that pursue something that you love to the fullest, and the success will be a byproduct. The financial success can be a byproduct genuine pursuit. I mean, some people's pursuit is to have financial success. For me, I think it was just pursue your passion, pursue the thing that you're interested in, that you love and believe in, and then there can be some success from that just by default.
Well, and you're certainly the poster child for that. Not everybody who pursues their passion has that economic reward that sort of comes along with it, but you've managed to do both. And I don't know this for sure, but I get the sense that accolades aren't super important to you, that being recognized by others isn't what drives you. You talked about rather than being in a competition, man against man competition, that you're really competing. I don't think you said this, but probably against yourself, and then certainly against nature, against the forces and the waves and all of that. And so tell me if I'm right about that. And then also, either way, you're clearly driven to grow and to improve and certainly to conquer big waves. What drives you in surfing and then also in life?
Well, those are large questions. I would say, having accolades, I think it is good to get appreciated. When you've spent a lifetime pursuing something, when you have blood, sweat, and tears and broken bones in the pursuit of it, it is nice to be appreciated. I think that, the appreciation from people you respect, your peers, your family, I think that for me is the important part. You can't you can't determine what somebody's going to think, that's 1,000 or 2,000 miles away. If somebody does appreciate your work, if somebody says, "Hey, I saw your, thing and I really appreciated your work," that is a nice, can be a nice compliment. But that's not the pursuit. That's not and the challenge. You don't, people go, "You conquered that wave." You don't conquer waves. You can act in harmony with them. You're able to, I would describe it more like surviving the wave. You survive the mountain, you survive the ocean. You can have moments of harmony in those environments when allowed to. So I think that is a piece of it. I mean, the challenge of trying to, grow oneself, and also to be able to, compete with oneself, to be able to push oneself past what we think we're capable of, to pursue things that you believe, that dreams you've had. I mean, I can say as a child, I had dreams to be, a great waterman, a great surfer. I would lie if I didn't say I had that from a very young age. I mean, that was something that I spent my life pursuing it. And I've gone through different stages in it where, it became something that had all the, and it's still surfing, it's still the ocean, it's still all these beautiful environments. But, when you start to make it, when it becomes something different than for the love of it, or because you have to, you change that. I have had to go through that process, and why am I doing this? What's it mean to me? And then I go through the, okay, well, you're earning a living and you have to do all the, you have to do these things to continue to do that. And then pretty soon, no matter what it is, it starts to become something that maybe it didn't start out as, and then you stop loving it. And I felt like for me to stop loving, surfing, or stop loving being in the ocean would be, I would look at that as sinful. Like I would be like, that would be crazy for me. But that could happen for you depending on, so I've had to kind of go through stages where I've recalibrated it to remember that I do it because I love it. This is something that I love to do. And am I fortunate to be able to earn a living from it? Absolutely. But would I still be doing it if I was running an excavator or digging a ditch, absolutely. So I've been able to subsidize it and had the fortune to subsidize, my love for it. But, it's what I love to do. And then what I really find that I really love is I really enjoy doing what I haven't done before, that I get to a certain stage with a certain discipline and I'm like, well, I've done that. And the only way to improve from that would be to have, and in surfing, we have these unique things happen where if once you have had a special day and a special wave and a giant, everything comes together, the uniqueness of that, the uniqueness of that moment is so rare that you may never get one of those in your lifetime. I mean, I've had moments in surfing that there will never be another day like that. It just, there won't be, because the wind was perfect and I was in the right spot and everything came together like a fine gem or something. And so to continue pursuing that particular moment or discipline, it would only set you up for failure. I mean, you'd just be miserable because you would never be able to get that again. So I find when I'm able to pursue a new special, a new pursuit within these disciplines, that I'm able to kind of recapture those moments. And I use an example, like there's a famous wave that I rode in Tahiti in the year 2000. And it kind of changed our perspective about what was rideable. And we had been pursuing riding very large waves with this technique that we used to be towed on, first by Zodiacs with motors and then eventually with jet skis. And it was allowing us to ride the biggest waves that had been ridden until then. And so I was able to ride a very defining wave that was, it was impossible to ride any other way than this technique I used. And in that, I was like, that was the moment. But and that wave, I'll never have another moment. There'll never be another first time that happened. Like all that will leave. And now I pursue, I use hydrofoils, and I'm riding hydrofoils in waves. That was another kind of a thing that we were involved in the development of, that has, taken the world, our world by wildfire. They're everywhere. And so I have pursuits and other challenges within that are on the horizon that are accomplishable. And I think for me, I've found that if you don't set up an impossible goal, it's nice to have one that's elusive, that can move. So as you achieve, you can continue to pursue. I think for me, there's always about the pursuit. I need something out in front of me to be pursuing. Without that, it would take away motivation. It would stop me from being driven to wake up every day in the dark and train and take care of myself and do all the things I do to try to, it wouldn't stop me completely from doing it, but I wouldn't be doing it with the vigor that I do when I have something that I'm pursuing, that I'm going to use all of this kind of preparation for.
What's that impossible goal for you right now?
Well, it's not impossible, but we have, we are able to ride giant waves at sea. And so the potential of what that offers is something that is really unique. It will be done. If it's not done by us, it'll be done by someone in the future. But to be able to go into and ride giant waves at sea, it's a enormous frontier, because the ocean is very large, and but it has its complications with, how are you going to get there? When you get there, how are you going to be there? How are you going to be able to keep track of, you and all of your you and your teammates, and how can you do it safely and all of that. So the complexity of that actually offers the challenge. So there's a challenge within that. So because of the difficulty of, where, how, all of those things. But I've been pursuing big, and, I think I like tangible achievements, like big is big. Like it's it's not so ambiguous. It's less opinionated or judgment. It's like, no, that's a giant wave, and it doesn't matter who's looking at it. They'll be like, that's a giant wave. And I just had my 60th year last year. I'm 61 now, but I had my 60th year last year, and wanted to do something monumental during the year of my 60th year on the Earth, and I was able to ride the longest wave that I had ever ridden. I wanted to do something. I didn't know if it was ride a 60-foot wave or ride something, but something kind of that I hadn't done yet again. And I was able to ride a 10-minute long wave, which is, for me, was the longest wave I've ever ridden. And I only go with that. I don't know who's ridden, if maybe somebody else has ridden a longer one, but for me personally, I was able to do that, which is nice when you've been, surfing for 50 years or more, 55 years, and you're able to do something you haven't done. That's a beautiful thing. And I continue to want to try to do that.
Well, one thing that struck me as you were talking was the uniqueness of every wave. You said you won't be able to ride that particular wave again. And you're right. Literally every single wave that you ride, you won't be able to ride again. It's not like skiing. If you're not satisfied with the jump distance or your time, you go back to the top of the mountain and you ski down again. Or snowboarding, where you're able to do, if you don't land I don't know what they're up to, like 1080s or whatever it is that they're spinning on boards. If you don't get it, then you go up and you do it again and again and again. It really is a unique, once in a lifetime experience, right? You probably do have waves that are similar, but maybe that opportunity to ride for 10 minutes, or maybe that the wave in Tahiti that you were able to ride, it's just not going to come. Like, you could wait the rest of your life in Tahiti waiting for it, and it's never going to come because of the nature of the ocean, right?
Yeah. Well, I think that's, it's the ultimate game of improv. When you think about it, it's an improvisational there's an improvisational aspect to surfing that I think that's what kind of can capture your attention. Like when people get drawn to surfing and they get taken by the surf bug, or however you want to describe it. I think part of it is that. I think part of it is that it's this improvisation. Everything's different every time. Like I said, no two waves the same at the same place on the same day, and no two rides the same. I mean, there's similar aspects to rides and similar things happen, but there's no two rides the same. Every wave, the texture, the thing, there's just, and I think that in itself keeps us, kind of, enamored by it. It's like because I think as a species, I think that's one of the things that we're always looking for, right? We're always looking for the next thing, we're always in pursuit of something unique, right? That's our, it's like built into us. We're always looking for the next kind of, and so within surfing, I think that's a beautiful thing that it has. It also makes it very difficult to master. Like there's the level of skill that you need. I don't know if there is I would question if there even is mastery within surfing. I think that you can get to a level of consistency and a certain level of performance, but when you say mastery, it's like, it's hard to have mastery when things are always different. It's like there's something about that. I think it's always, and you're always, you're just always challenged. I think the challenge is always there, even when you have those days when you feel like there's nothing you can do wrong. There still is a level of, of kind of, I wouldn't say cautiousness, but you're just the awareness that it takes to to be, because you just don't know what it's going to throw at you, especially when it's big, when there's consequence on the line, that everything is magnified. I think that's why I was always drawn to that aspect of the ocean, is that it really forces you to be present and completely engaged. There is no room for any kind of drifting and any kind of outside kind of distraction, because you just don't, you'll pay if you're distracted. And I know it. I mean, these lessons come quickly in that environment, and I think that's that uniqueness, that the difficulty, all those things, and then you magnify it when it gets more intense. And then that's for me, that's like, I think that's why that's why I've enjoyed that part of it.
Well, and I'd like to ask you more about what that looks like in the extremes. I want to talk about fear and death. And the first reason I want to talk about it is because you write about it extensively in your book. And I read your latest book, Life Rider, which is a great book. I liked the book. I loved your stories. I also liked Gabby injecting commentary. And so it was interesting to hear her talk about you and how that some things were consistent and her take on things were a little bit different, but I really appreciated that. But the first chapter is about fear and death. And the second reason that I want to talk about it, which I think is obvious, you've alluded to it, is that in the world of extreme surfing, the stakes are literally life or death. And I wonder how this factors into riding a wave that's 80 or 100 feet, or some of the other things that might be more dangerous because of the conditions, even though the waves aren't as big. What are you thinking about and feeling as you prepare to catch a monster wave? And if you could describe, especially for those who have never surfed. So I was in, full disclosure, I was in Hawaii and tried to get on a surfboard, and it didn't go that well. I was taking a lesson with two of our kids. Our kids, they bounced right on the boards and they did great. And I was sort of trying the whole time just to get on the board. So I have no appreciation for any of what you're doing, other than I know it's extremely difficult. And I will never come close to mastering it. And that's not a goal of mine, thankfully. But and so what are you feeling as you're preparing to do that? And also share what it feels like, because this is amazing to me, to be completely surrounded by water beneath you, water behind you, and towering above you. You know, those great photos that you have of you. You're not a pebble, but you're, not super big compared to everything that's behind you and beneath you and around you. What does that feel like as you're riding that massive wave?
I think it's describing a feeling is like describing a color. I think there's difficulties within that, other than, you are undistracted. You have there's a level of kind of presence. People talk about being in the moment. They talk about flow state, where you're kind of detached from self. You don't really you're not like I, me, you're kind of just, you're in the act of doing it. I mean, I have the most, when I have a hard time watching giant waves. Like, if once I'm in them, I feel, I lose the anxiety that I have from observing them. I feel like observing them makes me kind of anxious. I don't like to watch. Unless I'm really tired at the end of the day and I've been surfing in them all day, then maybe I'll go watch them. But just to observe them before I'm going to be in them, I don't like that. I don't like to do that. I like to be in them, because I feel for me the action that it takes to be in them keeps me not thinking about anything else except that. like you're focused on the action that you're focused on the action, what you need to do while you're there, the presence of mind that you need. I mean, the truth is there's a stillness in it. There's a stillness in the ride when you're on unless of course you crash, and then the stillness ends abruptly and then you're in the chaos. But in the act of riding a giant wave, I mean, there's I don't know of anything. I mean, going fast, maybe in Formula One or in a jet, fighter jet or something, doing things like that, maybe downhill, giant super G, giant slalom where you're going 80 or something that has that kind of intensity that just keeps you present, right in the moment. They talk about being in the moment. I mean, the pursuit of that results in your appreciation for just, I would say being alive, but just also there's something that you get from coming through that makes you feel, I would say, worthy. Like I feel a sense of like I've done something worth being here, being alive. Like I feel like I've accomplished something. Very few things make you feel so accomplished. Maybe, surviving parenting or, surviving a relationship, being in a relationship, like maybe some of those things. But as far as just, I describe it as the selfish part, but just the individual part of your, the other piece of you, I think there's, for me, I feel like we have, we have these different pieces of ourselves, and, and there's a selfish, kind of, whatever you want to say, ego driven, you want to say just kind of identity driven, like this is what I'm going to do. This is what I want to do as a, that's disregarding everything else, including, food and whatever. You just disregard everything and you're in the pursuit of this, which is what is, there's a meditative aspect to it. I mean, when you see a giant wave and you're going to ride it, like you see it approaching and you're in a position that you're going to get onto the wave, and you made a decision to make it. It's an interesting, that is an interesting moment, that when you've observed this thing, and it's alive, and you like observe this thing that's alive because it's alive and it's moving and it has a personality, and you observe it, and then you make the decision that you're going to ride it. That level of commitment is, I mean, we used to, we spent a lot of time cliff jumping. We like cliff jumping. I've jumped off a lot of really high things in my life. That kind of defining moment, you don't kind of jump off a cliff. You either jump or you don't jump. So there's and big, waves are like that. There's a really
like
defining
jumping out of a plane, right?
Yeah, exactly. You don't kind of jump. You either jump or you don't jump. And so I think that there's something about that commitment when you've decided I'm going to ride, I'm going to go on this one, and then you commit to it. There's a very, that moment of its clarity. You don't want any congestion in that. You don't want any kind of apprehension. You don't want any doubt. All of those things never end up helping very much. If anything, they hurt you. But you've decided, you make the move, and then you go. And then once you depending on if you're paddling into it or you're getting towed into it, whatever way you're getting into it, and you catch it, and then it's just, you're so focused. The demand to accomplish, the demand on the system, the body, the demand on the system is so high and so so all encompassing. There's very few things that you experience in your life, if any, that are like that. You just don't, because they're just, and maybe I have friends that are in the military that have been in a lot of battles, and maybe it's in those moments, like thank you to the Lord that I'm not getting shot at or shooting at anybody, but I think there is a similarity to any of these extreme activities that people are doing. No matter what, whenever there's a certain level of consequence, I think the demand on the system to be aware and to be able to do everything you need to do, to be able to, there's this aspect to it where you slow down everything so that you can make good decisions. And if you understand about creating slow motion, you do that through speeding up your perception. That's how you slow things down. So this perception is sped up in order to slow down. That's how you make slow motion film. You speed it up and then you can make slow motion. So your perception is sped up, which the demand on, speeding up your perception is so, I'd say it's so enthralling, so amazing that, and then you have to live with that too. We call it post-traumatic, where we come out of, if you ride giant waves and you are on the edge, then when you'll have to come down off of that. And I think anything's like that. The higher the demand and the longer sustained the demand is, the bigger the come down is off of that intensity, just the demand on the system. If you're in fight or flight for days we just, weeks, days, months, years, you're going to have a big come down off of that the system is just going to, need to recover. So we have all of those aspects in the pursuit and in the activity of riding those giant waves.
Well, it's fascinating to listen to you talk about it, and I think our listeners and viewers will agree that we can feel at least some of those feels. It's definitely not the same as being out there like you're doing, but the way you describe it certainly helps us to have some appreciation for that. One of the things that I think is really cool is how you mentioned some of your innovations and the innovations that you've created around your love for surfing, and also brands and products and businesses that you've built around you that reflect your lifestyle. I want to ask you about a couple of them. And the first is a business that I happen to be a customer and a huge proponent of, Laird Superfood. I don't know how long I've been using the performance mushrooms, but my son actually introduced me to the turmeric creamer, I think was the first one, and then performance mushrooms. And so this is what I put in my coffee every day and have for years. And so I really appreciate that. How did you get into the plant-based food business?
Well, honestly, it came completely authentically. It was a recipe. The original formula was a recipe that I was making for myself. It started with my love for coffee, and then wanting to use coffee. Everybody uses coffee for, I would say, for energy, but I wanted to try to maximize that. I wanted to maximize that kind of use, right? And so I made a recipe myself that I would share with my friends, and I had been exposed to a lot of different aspects of coffee stuff, and of course, because of there was ghee in espresso, and then there was Bulletproof was putting coconut oil in coffee, and so I had been around a lot of that stuff, and had been drinking coffee for I call it one of my French habits since I was in my early 20s, and so I had a recipe that I made that I would share with friends, and then one of my friends was somebody that I was working on another business project with, and he was like a startup business guy, and so him and I. I gave him my recipe and all the ratios and stuff, and he made a powdered sample of my original recipe. And I think probably the third rendition of that recipe ended up being what we know now as sweet and creamy. and it's one of the creamers. And I love turmeric and have used. It's in Hawaii. It's called Olena, which has been used in Hawaii for hundreds of years, and it's in the ginger family. And so I'm a big proponent of turmeric, and so I use the turmeric creamer every morning. But we just started building from that kind of base from my original recipe, and then started using a similar philosophy around kind of what Gabby and I believe in, which is, for me, it needs to be functional. So it's all about function. So, I mean, coming out of a recipe that, the whole thing about using these creamers is so you time release the caffeine and you get sustained energy and you don't get a crash, and then you can absorb other nutrients because the fat works really well to absorb other things like turmeric and so and that was kind of the base of the philosophy of it. And then, okay, it needs to taste good because people won't use it if it doesn't taste good. And then it needs to be affordable or presented in a way that people can get it. And the truth is those powders are very functional, easy to use, and easy to store, easy to carry. You can make it stronger or weaker. There's just so many things about it. So that's kind of the basis of the foundation of the project. And we started selling them the original one was online. We would just started to sell them online, and we were, they started to get traction, and then we just expanded kind of out from there and started, creating the mushroom blends and then the greens and the reds and all the coffees infused with adaptogens. And I mean, we just kind of expanded with the same philosophy that we were just using in our own life.
Wow, and that's a great success story. And the company went public in 2020, I think, and so that's been hopefully great for you and your team. And I will say that the performance mushrooms don't taste quite as good as some of the other, the turmeric creamer or some of the other ones. It's a little earthy, but I'm good with it, and I'm serious. I have it every day with my coffee, and have for years, and will continue to. So I appreciate.
Well, I'll teach you a little trick. Is something that works really good. Is cacao is really good. With the mushrooms, something about the mushrooms has a malty aspect, and when you use mochas with the mushroom, that actually works very, very well. If I mean, I drink crazy things. Gabby always says, "Yeah, I would drink dirt if I thought it was going to be healthy." So I'm not. You don't use me as a flavor, but I do like the using cacao with the performance mushroom. That works very well.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Some people who have tried the performance mushrooms with just black coffee suggest that I drink dirt every morning, but I'm like you, I'm totally okay with it because it's more about health. But if there's a way to enhance the flavor too, then I know you and I both agree that that's certainly okay. One of your newest companies, Laird, is XPT, and you tout extreme performance training as and I'm quoting, holistic approach that pushes people to become the most versatile and resilient human being possible. What's the origin of that company, and how can we all benefit from your approach to wellness with XPT?
Well, that started again authentically. We have a pool and heat and ice and stuff that we've been doing for quite a long time at our home. And we have friends that come up and people that kind of do a lot of the things that kind of a program that we've kind of developed it over years with friends. Kind of we're all we take turns being guinea pigs, and we try stuff and implement different modalities that we learn, and that company came out of just a thing that we were doing that we do at our house. And in fact, today this morning I was just finished with a group of friends that came up that we pool trained, and we did some, we had assault bikes in the heat. We do breath work, and we do I mean, XPT kind of the motto is breathe, move, and recover. A lot of what we do, a lot of the training that we do, and I've, experiences is really kind of undermined some of our health and our performance. We beat ourselves up pretty good working out. It's not working in. And so, kind of approaching it a little more creatively. Again, I think some of my boredom has a tendency to lead me away from doing things that are too monotonous. I also want to do things that are supporting my performance. And so, the pool training itself is kind of the most unique aspect of what we do. We do heat. We do a lot of heat and ice, a lot of thermoregulation stuff because we know how beneficial that is on our systems. We do a lot of breath work because we know how beneficial that stuff is. And then the pool stuff is kind of a marriage between weightlifting and swimming, something that's very unique in that. It grew out of something that we did growing up that the Hawaiians had been doing, and a lot of other Polynesians, and a lot of other divers. Is you take stones and you run along the bottom, and then you swim down and you take turn. You do that in the summertime for training. You'll swim, grab a stone, run along the bottom as long as you can. And so I kind of just took that and expanded that into a whole different kind of just a whole different level of that concept, where we have all these different drills that we do that make you better at swimming. I mean, a lot of this stuff was based on preparing for riding big surf. A lot of the breath work and the hypoxia training and all that stuff really started out of the fitness thing. So, again, XPT really came, and then we had one of Gabby's friends that she played volleyball with, that we've worked with for a long time, just came over and like, oh, you got to do something with this. You got to do something with this. Da, da, da. So, and again, we started XPT, we started doing experiences and expanded from there. And so that just grew out of what we were naturally doing, what we still do. I talk about being authentic. I mean, we use Superfood every day. I have a house full of it. We're doing XPT every day. These are just lifestyle things that we've learned over years of experience. And, so that's, I feel like there's so many things you can do in your life, and so many choices. You might as well choose the ones that you're doing, like make it. And we don't make it like we make it. I mean, we're fortunate that being in shape and is part of our work too. But in a way, I tell people, being in shape and being healthy is part of everybody's work, because you're alive and you're a human on earth. So there's nobody who isn't, that it doesn't benefit. And it's just how you can do it. So we try to make it, lifestyle based. We incorporate it. But XPT is people really enjoy it. They learn a lot from it, whether they just learn stuff about their breathing, whether they learn about the benefits of thermoregulating, whether they, kind of learn about the walls of their fear in the pool. The fun thing about the water in the pool really brings out, and the cold does it too. These environments bring out a lot of people emotionally. They bring things out of people. We just always talk about your wall, or the barrier of your mind, and where how to move that, and not to compare that with anyone else, but just your own, again, back to your own personal thing. Like what I try to, do in my own pursuits is it's you pursuing, who's your biggest, competition, yourself,
Right.
and let everybody worry about themselves. It seems like that's enough of a problem. If we all just did that, I think it would be a better world, and people would be better too, because it's just about, in a way, self-improvement, self-belief. So, my mom had a great saying when I was a child. She said, if you can't be true to yourself, you can't be true to anyone else. And so I use that kind of as a basis for kind of some of the philosophies that you know, that go into, if we're going to do any business or any company, whether it's, you know, Laird Superfood, or it's XPT, or it's some, you know, some other hard good thing, or whatever it is, try to approach it. I try to approach it that way the best I can. Like, is it authentic? Do you use it? You know, do you feel good about it? Like, will you give it to your kids? Will you give it to your grandparents? Will you, you know, all those things, right? I think that all those things that go into it, because I mean, you could do a lot of things. I mean, there's no end to the things you can do. It's just so you might as well, you know, find something that you know, and I tell that to my girls, my daughters, I talk to them, you know, it's like, find your thing that really impassions you, and whether you have to do another job to subsidize it, or whether you get to have it be your job. I just think that if you really do pursue it, and you may subsidize it in the beginning and at times along the way, but it will become your job. Like, at the end of the day, somehow in that pursuit, and if you pursue it wholeheartedly with all your passion, I don't know how. I mean, I told somebody, I go, listen, if you got really good at balancing a chair on your head, you'd probably have a job, because people would pay you to come and walk around and balance a chair on your head. Like, so at the end, it's like, pursue it. Because I don't know. I think that's, I mean, and I'm fortunate, and people could say easy for me to say, because that's what I've done. But, you know, the way I grew up, and I mean, I could easily have not had any time along the way I could have been derailed and turned and not continued to pursue it.
Well, sure. I think it's easy for people to say, oh, look at you, you know, easy for you to say you've done those things, but you're that overnight success story that's taken like 40 years, right? And you continue to, you didn't do something 40 years ago and you're still living off that thing, right? You're constantly growing, constantly evolving, constantly innovating. What I love, and I really enjoyed hearing you talk about XPT, because it sounds like just a total fitness and wellness system. But what I love about everything that's permeated through our conversation is the authenticity. You're actually using all of these products that you've developed, and by the way, they're products today because you were using them right in the beginning, and that's how they got developed in the first place. And then the other thing is the intentionality. You're clearly very intentional about how you live your life. The things that happen to you are not accidental, because you're moving in a certain direction, and you attract things that are consistent with your lifestyle, with your beliefs, with the people that you surround yourself with, and that's a great model, not just for your daughters and for your wife, but for everybody who's able to learn about you. Laird, as you know, our show is called LifeExcellence, and I wonder, what does excellence mean to you?
I mean, excellence for me is, I guess, the pursuit of trying to master oneself. I think there's an excellence in that, because I don't think there ever is true mastery of oneself in its entirety, no matter who we are and what we're doing. And I think when I think about excellence, I think about the whole thing, right? Like, I look at life like a wheel with spokes, and I think about excellence is that the spokes are all nice and have even tension. And whether it's your spiritual, your physical, your relationships, your personal pursuit, the thing like that, that there's no loose spokes, you know, that I think and there's always going to be a loose spoke, and can you go adjust it when it's loose and keep the wheel rolling nice, keep that, you know, I would describe that. For me, that's excellence. I think that having that, because there's so many, you know, they're so easy to get a loose spoke. And I think for me, I feel like that's, you know, excellence is the ability to continue to try to keep the spokes all nice and tensioned so the tire rolls rolls evenly, and and not just because I think that it's easy for us to get kind of off balance and just in the pursuit of some, I think that in the pursuit of a dream or a passion, that you can totally just neglect the other aspects of your life that are equally as important. It's just they're different, and so sometimes that can be confusing because maybe you get credit for all these other things, but then over here there's no, there's very little credit for being trying to be a solid father, that's just there, that's solid, that's there. There's very little credit from a woman to be a solid mother being there. There's areas where there's not a lot of credit, and so, but those are so equally as important in your, if not the most important, ironically, but they're so important in that whole, keeping the tire rolling. And so I think that for me, excellence really is the pursuit to continue to try to, tighten the loose spokes.
I appreciate that. That's very well said, and I agree with everything, especially with what you said at the end about. I think the things that are most important aren't the things that we get trophies for, right? But those are clearly the most important things, and I know you certainly put those things at the forefront of your life. Finally, I just wanted to ask you about nature, because you wrote about nature. You obviously are connected to water, and I sense more broadly to nature. And you write about that, by the way, in your book, Life Rider. How does that connection help you? And why is it important for all of us to be, in your opinion, for all of us to be more aware of and connected to nature? And I'll say especially in a world where technology, social media, and other influences exist that pull us away from nature.
Well, we're being denatured right now. We've been. I mean, listen. For me, nature is creation, right? So if you believe in God and you're a spiritual person, then you can see creation, the creator. And also to think that there's not a creator, that this isn't a part of creation, when you look at nature, would be impossible. I don't know how you could actually truly observe nature and then think that there wasn't a grand architect, that this wasn't architecturally, that there wasn't some design in this system. I mean, people can figure that out when they do math, and that's just numbers. Never mind when you look at nature. And so, I think that first of all, just for your own health, let's just go let's not even go spiritual. Let's just go for your own physical health. I mean, you need to be in the sunlight. You need to be walking barefoot. You need to be engaging in the environment just to be healthy. That's just, I mean, so, regardless of whatever your beliefs, just your physical needs, we're connected to nature. We breathe oxygen, what plants create. I mean, what we exhale, they inhale. I mean, our interdependency on nature and our need for it. I mean, I just, yeah, I mean, so my personal relation, I mean, I grew up in Hawaii, but on the Garden Island, which was one of the most beautiful places in the world. And so, but it's also, has a savage ocean and big sharks in the water and, cliffs to fall off of. And so it's not without danger, but the beauty of the place is so awe-inspiring that it's impossible to ignore. You can't ignore it. And so, I'm a nature lover, nature fan, have been my whole life, just because of the environment that I grew up in. And so, I grew up fishing and farming and, all around all this prolific. The way this island is that I grew up on is so prolific. It's the wettest, one of the wettest places on earth. And so when you see that, how nature works and and all the different aspects, there's the depth of the aspects of it. When you look at, the volcanoes and how the islands are formed, and then you look at the vegetation and the plants, and then you look at the ocean, and I mean, I've been in some of the biggest, couple of the largest hurricanes that ever hit land. I was in hurricanes with, that on the top of the mountain had excess of 200 and whatever it was before the weather station blew away. I mean, we had 180-mile-an-hour winds at my mom's house. I've been through, a couple giant hurricanes. I've been in giant floods, huge. I was in a rainstorm that had something like unofficially 65 inches in 24 hours. I mean, I watched 7 hours of lightning that there was, 6 to 8 strikes every minute. I mean, this is for real, so I've seen, and I've been in giant waves, and I've been trapped in waterfalls in the rivers, and I've seen, so the depth in which I've experienced the power and the beauty of nature for me, I mean, it's you're part of it. Like, you're part of we're from it. It's not there for us. Like, it's not there for us to use how we want. It's there for us there are things that are there to support us and supply us. But it's not, I mean, it's alive. Like, the whole thing's alive. So let's just go there. It's alive. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm always in awe. I'm always in awe of nature. I think that's such a good perspective to have. I think nature brings that out of you. I think it's important for people to go into nature. I solar gaze in the morning whenever I have access to the sunrise. I've been doing that for, as long as I can remember, 20, 30 years more. I'm always in the sun as much as I can, just because I know what it, we know the science, we know what it does. It's the the source of life. Like, it's like, it's I mean, you think about what cold is nature, hot is nature. I mean, temperatures are nature. It's all, I mean, it's just all, and it's all tied together in such a beautiful system. Have to really appreciate it.
Well, and you've described it so eloquently too, and I appreciate that. Laird, this has been phenomenal. I really appreciate you making the time to be here today. And
thank you, Brian.
This has been terrific. It's been an honor to have you on the show. Mahalo, my friend.
Thank you, and aloha. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning into Life Excellence. Please support the show by subscribing, sharing it with others, posting about today's show with Laird Hamilton on social media, and leaving a rating and review. You can also learn more about me at brianbartes.com. Until next time, dream big dreams and make each day your masterpiece.